I didn't even have the UK as one of my choices. My aspiration was honestly to get something after my first year, but it's not an easy thing. It's an adventure. No matter what stage you're currently at in your degree, you need to start.
All right, Abdal, let's kick off with your, story, like where you're originally from and what drew you to UK specifically for your higher education.
Right, so I originally came from Palestine 2.5 years ago, so back in September 2022. Before that, I did finish high school, so I came September 2022. I finished high school the month before, and at that time, I had no idea where I want to go, quite literally. So I didn't even have the UK as one of my choices. But what I knew was that I wanted to travel abroad, study in a country where there is a top tier education, it's known for that, and it gotta be an English speaking country. So these three things. For me, the UK procedure was easier because what happened is there was a few universities that offer clearance or clearance positions for the course I was interested in, which was engineering. At the end, I've decided to go with Bristol because I just feel like, or I've read a few comments or a few posts online, and they would all say that Bristol is as a city, it's the most student friendly. So I've just decided to go there, but it wasn't really because I knew something about the university prior. So that was basically like the journey from Palestine to the UK.
That makes sense, like what you just said, and how the decision process. Also, it is very detailed and on point. And this is I think all the students who are actually planning to study abroad and the criteria that you selected that you would want to actually study in English country and all that pointers, that makes sense when you said like the UK, why you choose and everything. So like you're currently working as an engineering intern, which is no small feat alongside studying, given that you are still in your undergrad, right? So, like, how do you manage to bag that opportunity, like, as for the internship, and that too in a big firm that you're working at? So, how was that process like?
My aspiration was honestly to get something after my first year, so not really to wait until second year. But that didn't work out, so I did apply. I got interviews, but when I went to the interviews, I wasn't accepted or didn't get accepted because I wasn't really prepared enough. It was just a few months when first year started. No way I can like learn everything in a few months. But that taught me a lot, and it gave me like an idea on what to expect when doing these interviews. And most of these were technical, so like very very technical or very engineering focused, I would say, as opposed to like just a behavioral interview. So that was one thing. The other thing that I've done, and it did really help get in this position, that I've done in my first year, it was talking to current interns who are in these positions. So I remember reaching out to people from Intel who were interning at Intel, at AMD, the company that I'm currently at, and I would be asking them for example, their CVs. What do they think that helped them getting there? Because my idea was that if you really wanna have the highest chance, given your current situation, to get that position, then at least you would wanna do better than the best one of these interns, right? That was like a philosophy that I've adopted, and I wouldn't say that I'm the best out of them, or I did best or better than all of them, but I tried to sort of work work hard such that my CV, when it's the time to apply for these positions in second year, my CV matches or highly matches what these companies look for. And that was an indication for me, because they obviously won't declare that all the time. So that was the indication for me, for what they were looking for, was talking to these people, to these interns, and seeing what did they do. So that was a really helpful thing that I've done. I suggest everyone you need to be really strategic from the very first days,
Yeah.
or I should
So,
say as soon
yeah,
as possible.
where did you find these the interns who were actually working in the companies?
You mean how do I mean the interns that I reached out to.
Yes, yes.
So some of them where they would be like organizing some sort of an outreach. The company would be organizing outreach to universities, and they sometimes would bring in interns with them, and I would be chatting with them, or like graduate engineers.
Okay.
That was one way that I've gone about doing that. The other way was via LinkedIn. So I would be just searching their profiles, reaching out via an email or whatever. So these two methods. But there's just something that I need to note here, which is did also help, which was that in my first year, or after my first year, I did do something. So it wasn't like an open summer. I did do a research internship in that field. So what happened is I reached out to a professor, said if you've got like an interesting project that I can work on, and I was fortunate enough that there was something, and I spent the summer doing that. So that wasn't paid, but that did really contribute significantly to me getting this current position. So I suggest that if you couldn't get anything paid, try to do something that is most relevant to what you're anticipating. So the position that you're looking for, try to do something that, even if not paid, but for it to be, like as I said, very relevant to what you're gonna be working on. Do that, have it in your resume, so that it would really like make your CV stand out from others. Even though if you could be capable, but just the way that CV applications or these CV scrapers work, they would just identify you that, for example, you worked previously, you've got some relevant experience, and then you'd be invited to interview, even though if you, for example, they didn't do that, even though you may still be capable of taking that position, but just to do it because you have something in your resume and get to that interview stage.
That thing, like working with professors on research projects, although it was unpaid, so did it really, help you either in like understanding and gaining more niches into like your technical stuff because you have a very technical field also, or did it really help you to network? Either way, did it help, or like it was like no, only you had something to put on the CV and say that you have just gained UK work experience. So what happened there?
No, honestly, I would say it helped in all of these on all of these sides. So it did help me gaining something that I did really find very helpful
Yeah.
in that very same field. It did help me knowing how to communicate, how to reach out, and it was also something that got me to the interview stage. And I would be asked sometimes technical questions from that internship, that research opportunity that I've done with my professor. I've gained skills, I've gained knowledge that did really help me answer these questions or pass these technical interviews. So I wouldn't say it was just something to showcase on CV. No, it was helpful as well. However, sometimes some of the universities, they do paid research positions. University of Bristol does that, but they do it like after your second year. But I was looking for something specifically after my first year. But so that's why I had to do it myself and reach out and find if there's something out there I can work on.
So how does when I'm imagining the word intern engineering, so what does that look like when you are in undergrad student?
Well, I would say it's the summer now, first of all, so I don't really go to university, so there isn't so the load of studying and exams isn't there. So um, the other thing is do not think that I'll be able to talk about technical details because there is a lot of NDA in here, but in general, It is really similar to any graduate engineering role would be. So at least at AMD, you're given tasks that, yes, they could be just slightly less heavy or less technical than what a senior engineer, or sorry, a graduate or a higher position engineer would take, but you're still doing full time and meaningful work. So you're still doing, if it's coding, you're still coding, you're still working on projects, you're still doing presentations sometimes, attending meetings, talking to people with 20 plus years of industry experience, which honestly is the most helpful thing I can think of right now that I gained. Yeah, basically an engineering job. It's a real engineering job, not just something that you're given because, or it's like your work is being some sort of seen as less value than others. No, it is real work, I would say.
So I would like to specify that I would want to understand who inspired you and what exactly are the resources that you explored to understand that okay, you have to start applying early to be successful into the UK, which is a difficult job market.
I would say that I'm really interested in that field. So, and for this very competitive field in engineering, in electrical engineering, if you are to get into that, you need to put the maximum amount of effort you can. Once you get to the stage that you got an internship, you got work experience, you don't really need to worry much as before. But because it's not as, or it isn't as less competitive, I would say, as others, you need to put in as much work as possible. So that was one of the motivations because I really wanted to work in the field. So I know that I needed to put a lot of effort, and I didn't mind that. The other thing is about resources. I would say LinkedIn is really powerful. This is something that for sure I know that you need to start working on your LinkedIn as soon as possible,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So you put in the projects that you worked on during your university. If you got good grades, you think that they are worth showcasing, you do have that on LinkedIn. It helps. Try to be specific as possible. So so for example, you're doing electrical engineering and you've got a profile on LinkedIn. Try to pick a niche in electrical engineering and tailor your profile, those who you follow. If you post anything towards that niche, not be as broad as possible because you won't be that much attractive to employers, I would say, because a company, there are rare companies that specialize in everything. Most of companies, they specialize in just one niche. So you try to be as specific as possible, but also don't go very specific. So you try to also be that midpoint in between where you don't really miss out a lot of stuff in the broad world, I would say, or in the broader or in other fields. So LinkedIn is really powerful. University resources did help because I remember that one time so during my second year, this is not something I've mentioned. I was doing a part-time internship, engineering internship, and that one I got via a scheme at the University of Bristol. It is called the SME scheme, like where you would work for a startup or an SME organization, and then they pay you, but the university compensates them some of that salary. Not all of it, but some of it. But that just encourages these SME organizations to hire students. Plus, it's helpful for them, so they're not really putting lots of investment. They're still gaining value. So you don't go there just to have something on your resume. At least for my case, I did meaningful work.
Quite lucky actually to have that opportunity as well, and for your university to be so proactive in providing you those opportunities, bringing in those SMEs and startups to do that. Okay, now I'll jump to more of like, your experience with Student Circus. Like, did you interact with the resources and how do you come across us, and like which were the few features, if you found any of those helpful, and why did you think that it was like helpful?
My experience with Student Circus started out by, I believe, a seminar that the university sent us to attend, and from there I just, I guess, added my email to your newsletter and kept receiving updates. So that very first seminar, it was during the very first weeks of my first years, or my first year. What I remember from that seminar, I mean, I can't really remember it all, but what I remember from that did like really stick the most to me was that you need to start early. So that thing that I've told you, it was, I believe, as an advice by Student Circus, and I can't emphasize enough on how important that is. No matter what stage you're currently at in your degree, you need to start as early as possible.
If you had to describe your whole job hunt journey and your international student journey in the UK in one word, what would that be? And why that specific word?
If I had to summarize the entire journey in one word, I would say an adventure. It's really an adventure. It's not something as straightforward as it may seem when you're taking that step, when you're deciding to leave your country, not studying there, but taking this step, this risk, and studying abroad, having to face all of these challenges to secure a job, to talk to people in a language that you could be not familiar with, as I was. Um, it is not an easy thing, and you need to have that in mind in advance. So if you're not really ready to take that challenge, I would say that not do not take it, and stick with the safe thing first until you sort of get your step in the door, and then you may do that step later on, but it's still worth doing after all, or still regardless worth doing, either if it was your undergrad or your postgrad. But it's not an easy thing. It's an adventure.
That is like quite a word for it, and it truly is. And understanding your journey, it has been, I can feel that it has been an adventure for you. So thank you for taking the time to interview with us.